Hey guys, right now I'm going to be making the ministry progress summary here through March 23rd, 2024. So it's been several months here. I ended up getting really busy with some of the coding projects I had for automating some of the video processing for all of the content that we'll be having moving forward. So I didn't quite finish all of the things that I thought I was going to focus on at the end of the last ministry progress summary, which was, I guess back in October or so. But we're going to be going over kind of all of the things that I did instead. So I really wanted to finish a lot of the kind of automation for processing videos before I processed all of the videos for the Bible Basics series that we've been doing in our Zoom Bible studies on the weekends here, just because I had maybe a backlog of 20 videos or so, and I knew that if I tried to do it all manual first, I'd end up wasting a lot of time relative to me just waiting a while until I finished some of the automation. So that's really mostly what I focused on the last several months, was getting this video automation process sort of set up. I made a Python application on the command line that basically helps me process a lot of the videos and calculate timestamps completely automatically. So I'll go over some of the specifics in that a little. I mean, not too much technical depth here, and go over some of the other things we did. And then, as per normal, I will also be going over kind of what I'm planning on focusing on for the next little bit in the future, kind of what my next stretch goals are, just as we've been doing for all of the ministry progress summaries since I started doing these. All right, well, to kick us off, I just wanted to go over some of the things that I had thought that I might be focusing on at the end of the last ministry progress summary. So this was kind of what I had in the upcoming plans section from that last progress update I had from last October. And I just wanted to go over some of these things and, well, basically say that I didn't get to them. And so it's not that I won't get to these things ever. I am planning on doing all of this eventually, kind of time permitting and depending on, what else I deem a higher priority and things like that. But I thought that I was going to be releasing more frequently here. First of all, just because I thought I was going to be releasing some of the Bible Basics content that we've been doing from our video series, but I ended up kind of bottlenecking all of that behind finishing the content automation process that I mentioned just before. And so I actually didn't end up making any releases in between then and now. And the reason why I'm doing it now is because I finally finished the initial steps in that process that lets me much more rapidly make new video content, kind of with the structure and the format that I want. And so that's kind of why it ended up being longer here than I thought it might. And, this time for real, I really do think that I will be keeping a more consistent schedule. I may not release every couple weeks, I'll still probably follow kind of milestones with the ministry progress. So for example, the next progress summary after this current one that I'm making will probably kind of be once I've posted a lot of the videos for the Bible Basics Part 1 series that we've been doing. So getting that Theology proper series up on YouTube. And, once I've at least made a lot more progress there and maybe achieved some of my other milestones in that project that lets me automate things, maybe I'll make another one. But so despite my best intentions, haven't been as consistent here in providing updates, although I have been busy, as we will see here. And then some of the other content things, I just ended up not focusing on those because I put most of my effort and my focus on getting the new video content up. And to be able to do that, largely focusing on trying to automate some of the tasks that are involved in that. So some of the other things that I may come back to in the future, doing some of those discussion-based questions from that Bible study of Romans that we had with one of the local groups I've been involved with, finishing the verse-by-verse series that I started on 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. I got through, I don't know, like maybe verse 16, verse 20. I can't quite remember. There were a few verses at the end of the chapter that I still hadn't gotten to yet. And just kind of for completeness sake, may as well finish off that chapter. I have a couple larger studies still in progress here. One on the concept of how we ought to view judging others as believers, and then one on the lukewarmness of the modern church. But I haven't managed to make a lot of progress there either, again, just because my focus has been elsewhere. And then some of the future matters or stretch goals, still thinking about them, didn't really make a lot of progress here in terms of, I don't know, weighing pros and cons or kind of looking at what my options are here. So thinking about starting another series in the middle of the week, where my friend and co-host and I might kind of bounce ideas off each other in a less, I guess I would say, consistently structured way. So our normal group Bible studies are right now they're happening on Sundays, but they've been either on Saturdays or Sundays for several years now. But if we could do one in the middle of the week, that might help increase the amount of content we can put out. So that was one of the ideas. And then the other one was just getting more involved with some online Christian communities. So like forums, some subreddits, Facebook groups, that sort of thing. But I just didn't make a lot of progress there either. So I won't belabor this overly. Just this was a list of things that I thought I was kind of focus on, and then honestly, most of my focus ended up getting kind of tied up in the other matters that I'll talk about in just a minute here. And so I don't really view this as like a failure, really. It's just kind of updating people on, well, I didn't actually do these things, and I'm going to tell you about what the things I did do instead. But not all of these things are never going to be done. Like I said before, just maybe I'll get to them in a while once I finish the set of other things that I chose to focus on this cycle instead. All right, well, going through that last section kind of should obviously bring up the question of, well, if I didn't do all of the things that I thought maybe I was going to do, what did I do instead? And so I'm going to kind of go over a couple slides here, some of the high level things that I focused on in the last few months here. And so, one of the high priorities has been continuing to record those Bible study meetings we've been having from our Zoom Bible study on the weekends here. And so we are actually almost done now with this first part of the Bible Basics series on Ichthys, which is theology proper. So we started out that study talking about the essence of God, and we've been talking about the Trinity now for several months. We are getting close to the end here, almost done in the section now talking about Christophanies in the Old Testament, which is the last main section of the study. So I think we'll be done in several weeks here, but over the last few months, we have continued to do this every week. I actually got a series of questions from a friend kind of talking about death and resuscitation in the afterlife and sleep as a metaphor for death, and kind of a long series of pretty detailed questions about some of these things. And so I actually made a video series on this, pretty in-depth. Ended up, I think, being 4 videos and maybe 4.5 hours of content across all of these topics here. And so I will be releasing these videos kind of alongside the Bible Basics videos that I've been talking about over the next several weeks here. Maybe even a couple months. We'll see how many I get to every week. But this was another kind of thing that I hadn't really anticipated, although I'm glad that I did it. I think it turned out well. I'm pretty happy with some of the content that I wrote kind of to answer some of these questions here. And so that was another content focused thing that I spent time on. And then this is not real interesting, but the mailing list provider that I was using for my ministry website, as well as the ministry website of my friend Jordan that I helped him set up. So I'll just plug his site again. This is his ministry site, and you can kind of tell it uses the same theme and stuff because I helped him set it up. But this new thing here, this mailing list, comes from a platform called Button Down. And this isn't the one that we used to use. We used to use one called TinyLetter, but then the company that owned or bought TinyLetter, MailChimp, they actually shut it down. And so I had to update the mailing list providers that we were using in our websites because, well, the company that used to run it just decided to close it, which was kind of unfortunate. So this wasn't horribly complicated, but we had to kind of export the mailing list, like the people on our list that we had, import them into the new thing, set up all the code to make these new sign-up forms work, and that sort of thing. So this took a couple days, a couple weekends in here as well. I worked with Jordan. I did it for my own site as well, kind of getting the mailing list updated. So that's kind of boring stuff, but it is something that I spent a lot of time on. And then, as I've kind of already been talking about before here, I spent an awful lot of time coding in the last few months trying to automate some of the video processing stuff. So I'm not going to really spend too much time going over all this in great detail because most people probably don't care that much. But I mean, the README on the GitHub repository is still kind of a work in progress. But this is the project I made for processing video stuff on the command line. So it uses Python and wraps some FFmpeg commands. And I also use pandas and OpenPyXL for kind of, writing and reading stuff from Excel files to keep track of state between all of the recording segments I have. And so I really won't get into any of the nitty-gritty specifics, but you can see I had a lot of wrapper scripts here for doing various things like combining video segments into the video and generating transition slides from the markdown files I have, organizing the raw recordings and the processed recordings. And, I won't bore you with all the details, but I actually ran this through an online, I don't know, lines of code counter for all the Python files. And it's not quite 1,000 lines, but we're talking maybe 700-800 lines of code here and all the logic that goes into that. And, a lot of research involved as well. And so I kind of started this before I released the last ministry progress summary video, but it had some bugs. Like some of the timestamp alignment wasn't quite right and things like that. And so not only did I finish that, I added a lot of extra functionality to help automate a lot of things here. So this was probably the coding task that took up by far the most amount of time here. And I mean, it was kind of in fits and starts. I didn't just sit there and do like 2 hours a day for, I don't know, like a very long time. It was, maybe I would sit down and do like 4 or 5 hours on a Saturday at some point, or, get up early in the morning and do an hour or two here and there. But, it took me a nice long time, and I'm not going to pretend this is perfect. I think it's helping me automate a lot of the stuff in my process, but, I don't know how useful it is to the world at large because not everyone maybe structures their content the same way as me and stuff, but not going to overly belabor it. But this is what I spent a lot of time on. Writing a lot of Python code to automate parts of the video processing steps that I take to try to make the content better. So that is, I'll go over exactly what's involved in this a little bit later in one of the future slides, but this is probably what sucked the most of my time away. This last content cycle was focusing on trying to get this done so that I could process all of the backlog of videos that I have for the Bible Basics Part 1 study, that theology proper that we've been going through, so that I wouldn't waste a bunch of time doing stuff by hand, given that I was so close to finishing some of the automation here. And then as part of this, I kind of set up my .files repository again, kind of set up a better command line environment for dealing with Python stuff. So I'm using the Windows subsystem for Linux. Well, I guess the second version of that, that's actually a VM. Using a shell called, well, I don't actually know how you pronounce this, xonsh, conch, I guess is how they would have you pronounce it. But it's basically a shell that's Python and, a package that helps you manage virtual environments and things like this. Really not interesting for most people, I would suppose. I also worked more on the keyboard project that I have been working on and off for probably 5 years now. I do touch type on a layer that's different than QWERTY. I've been trying to get this finished, like actually finished full time for like multiple years now, because I want, before I start really writing up and really ramping up the rate of production here, I want to have this done so that I am touch typing kind of in the most efficient way possible when I'm starting to write a lot more. And I really am a lot closer. I spent a lot of winter break here. So that happened in between the last release in October and this new content update. I spent a couple weeks there really cleaning up the code base for this. And I have a few more things to do. It kind of is always in an in-progress state, but I'm a lot closer than I was to being ready to use this full-time every day. And that will be important as I start to make more content. This is probably the other most important thing from this release. The other thing I spent a lot of time working with is I made it so that I could actually have timestamps on the web pages on my website that play the video on the page itself. And so it used to be every time you clicked on a timestamp, it would open the video in a new tab. But what happens if you want to change where you are in the video on the page as you read the page or look at content. So I will demo this as well. I'm going to be demoing kind of the output of my video processing, all that work I did for automation, kind of show, well, why did I do all that? What do I get out of it? And then also be demoing this page internal timestamps that I spent time doing to let you control the videos that are actually embedded on the web pages on the Bible Docs site. And then finally, again, probably not real interesting for a lot of people, but I spent time figuring out how to use better Greek and Hebrew fonts on web pages here. You can actually specify ranges of characters in Unicode. If people know what Unicode is, it's kind of like a the Latin alphabet has 26 letters, lowercase and uppercase and numbers and symbols and stuff. But if you want to use a Greek letter or a letter in the Hebrew alphabet, well, it's actually kind of better sometimes to use fonts that were specifically designed for Greek and Hebrew. So there's a few, some good options. Gentium is a good option for Greek. Cardo is good as well. Some people like SBL Greek. I'm not a big fan. I like Gentium much better. And then SIL Ezra and SBL Hebrew are probably the two best Hebrew fonts. And so I figured out how to actually use those on the web, be able to host them myself and specify that these are the fonts I want used for Greek and Hebrew. That's just kind of something I've been meaning to do for a while, but I finally got around to it. So I'm sorry that was a bit rambly. This is a lot of kind of programmery, coding stuff that I was working on, trying to get some of the content processing done more automatically, or kind of get, my keyboard project, get my touch typing closer to the state where I'll be ready to pump out a lot more content in the long term. And so I know I've been kind of doing these releases for, gosh, a couple years now, keep saying, I'm trying to make it better for the future. I'm trying to make it better for the future. And I mean, I'm still am, but I really do think we're getting closer here, especially now that a lot of the video processing automation has kind of, it's at least mostly done now. I've gotten a lot of it in place that I really will start cranking up the content production here, I think, hopefully in the next few months. So that is what I actually did here. Again, I did some new content stuff. I had to fix the mailing list, and I did a bunch of coding related things. And that's largely what I've been doing since last October. So just to go into a little bit more detail, although I know I've kind of talked about this already, the main reason why I delayed kind of posting any new stuff or making any content releases until now was because I wanted to finish the bulk of the video processing automation before I processed all the videos. So if I'm doing all this work to write a Python application to do a lot of the work for me in an automated fashion, well, I kind of want to wait until I finish that automation before I go process my backlog of 20 videos, right? And that's kind of why I ended up delaying here, why this is coming out a bit later than maybe I had wanted, because I wanted to mostly finish the Python application to automate all the video processing stuff before I processed all of the new videos. So kind of long story short, just ended up being a little bit harder than I thought it would be. It's not super surprising or unexpected. It is not that trivial to kind of automate, splicing all these video segments together on the command line and calculating timestamps dynamically based on the length of the video and so on and so forth. But I do think this will end up saving me a lot of time in the long run here, because if I'd done all of this stuff by hand, it would have taken me hours and hours and hours. And instead, I spent, I don't know, probably right now at about an equivalent amount of time actually, coding something to do it. But now moving forward in the future, I won't have nearly as much time that I have to spend doing a bunch of tedious content processing steps. And so even as it is now, there are still things that I need to do to make this better, really. There are a couple to-dos that I have still on this video processing project that right now are still kind of manual and still pretty tedious, and I have ideas for how to automate them as well, but kind of decided that I've kind of gotten a lot of the way there, and I want to start getting content up again, so that I'm not just delaying for 6 months or even a year while I finish some of this. So I'm gonna kind of bite the bullet and do a little bit of the process, still pretty manual, although I have ideas on how to fix it. And that's going to be kind of some of the upcoming work that I'm going to plan to focus on, alongside continuing to release all the new content here. But as terms of what the project does at the moment, and I will demo this kind of in the next section that we'll go over here, I automatically combine all these recording segments that I do. So right now I'm recording with Zoom. That's the platform we've been using for recording our group Bible studies. And I have been inserting these title transition slides between them. So kind of black slides, full screen with white text on them, relaying the new topic. So these are kind of topic transitions. And so I kind of add those, splice everything together, and then I generate timestamps automatically for all of the headers in the content. And so that's kind of all the automation I've done. Maybe it doesn't sound so hard, but actually getting all that to work properly. And so for example, when you add the title transition slides, that adds time, and you have to take that into account when you calculate the timestamps. Otherwise, everything gets offset and the timestamps are wrong. So kind of getting all that set up, these are the things that I've added here. And there will be other things, like I mentioned, that I'll go over that I'm still kind of be working on in the meantime to completely automate even more of the process. But for all of the hours and hours of video content that we've already recorded for this first part of Bible Basics, having these things automated will save me a massive amount of time in getting all this content processed and kind of up on the website in this final format that I think I've finally kind of figured out how I want all the videos to be in the long term here. And so doing it all before I had the automation in place kind of just would have been time inefficient. And so that's why things have been a little bit delayed here. All right, so as promised, I'm going to just go over kind of the briefest, highest level overview here of some of this video processing stuff that I've been mentioned, like what is it, how does it work, what effort am I saving in this? So I'm just going to be going over a few concepts here. I'll show you like one of the directories of the recordings that kind of how it's set up and how the things fit together. So this is the directory here for one of the recordings that I've already processed. So this is the very first lesson in this Bible Basics Part 1 series that we've been going over for Theology Proper, discussing the essence of God. And so I have a script that automatically generates this kind of directory structure. Once I say, okay, I'm ready to make a recording, I go to the content directory and execute something on the command line that kind of builds out the right directories. And so this file here, the Excel file titled segments.xlsx, that contains all of the recording segments that I'm planning to record. And so I kind of have them in an Excel file, and each row in that Excel file represents one of the recordings that I want to make for each section. And so those kind of correspond to headers within the content. And so once I have recorded that, the recordings end up in a subdirectory here. So I'm in the recording directory for this particular lesson in the study, and then you go into the recording subdirectory, and then I dump all of the files into the raw folder here. And so these are nice and pretty. I've numbered them in sequential order by tens, but I did that automatic. That isn't how they come out of Zoom. I clean them up to do this, to get them in order. And then I process them to remove silence in between, kind of like awkward pauses within the video. So if there's like a silence while we begin or end a segment, or if we're waiting for someone to unmute themselves when they're talking on the recording or something like that, I can just cut out. Usually it ends up being maybe 15 or 20 seconds of silence on some of the longer recordings, or even a couple minutes, depending, of just kind of what ends up not being useful content. You don't need to sit there in the video and watch as we wait for someone to unmute themselves to talk. We can just take that out, and it reduces the length of the video, even if it's not by much. And so that's mostly what the processing is here. I can also clean up the audio some, although I haven't had to do that recently since we've had better audio. But so that's what those two directories are. And then there's another directory for containing the topic transition slides that I've mentioned. And so I'll show you what these look like in a second once we actually look at the video, but I record these separately, and then the application that I've written takes the processed video files and then combines them with these topic transition video segments, and splices them all together to make the video file that's in kind of like the root recording directory for this lesson. And then after I've made the video, I have to add chapters to it. And so those correspond with all of the segment boundaries. So the headers in the content, the timestamps basically for each section. And so I do that. I make a metadata file. I attach that to the video, and then I actually automatically generate the description that I need to paste into the YouTube video when I'm uploading the video to release it on YouTube. So, like the playlist link and the link to the content on Bible Docs, the link to the slides on Bible Docs, the summary, and then all these timestamps. Well, these are the things that show up as chapters in the metadata. And also, these are the timestamps that I'm automatically generating. So that's kind of the overall structure of how the recording directories work. And so that, maybe is kind of just gee whiz information here. There's a lot of effort that kind of goes into automating all that. I have to have this consistent directory structure so that the application knows kind of what directories it needs to expect all these different files in and stuff. But in the end, you end up getting videos that I can upload to YouTube and, just copy paste the YouTube description. And then, it has, like we were just looking at the text file version of this, it has links to the webpage content, the slides content, the summary, and then all these timestamps here. And, again, just saying, oh, well, you're timestamping all the headers. The big deal about this is that that you see right here with all these timestamps is actually completely automatically generated. So the only thing that I have to do is write my content as I always do in my markdown files and have my headers and subheaders for the topics that we talk about. And then I just record the recording in such a way that I kind of record each section separately and then stop the recording and restart for each new section so that I have these nice separable recording segments for each of the sections. And then I run my script and out pops everything that you see here completely automatically. And so that's just kind of a taste of what this looks like. And now to see what the transition slides look like, so this is 49 minutes into this recording. If I click on this timestamp link, you'll see that now when I go to that timestamp in the video, there's this nice transition between the content that comes before it. So I'll go back just a little bit here. If I go, maybe a little bit more back, this video is playing, we're talking about something, looks like here, we are in 2 Corinthians chapter 3. And then after that, when you get to one of these topic transitions, which I guess it'll take a few more seconds here, but you kind of have this pause, this ability for the video to be silent for several seconds as we transition topics, and then we pick up with the next one. And so it looks real sharp. And when you're kind of transitioning between things in the video so that people who are watching this, especially on a faster playback speed, won't have, I don't know, the topics bleed into each other as much. It makes a lot of sense. This is something else I've wanted to do for a while, but I hadn't figured out a way to kind of automate it until recently. And so if I were to try to do all this by hand in a video editor, it would take hours and hours and hours for all the videos I have. But the point of all this kind of rambling that I'm doing here is that I set all of this stuff up to basically happen all on its own. So I run a couple commands on the command line, and then it magically does everything else. That is the idea. And in fact, now I have it so that is actually more or less what it does. So this was that thing that I mentioned that I spent most of my time on here, was making all of this stuff work properly so that I can record my video segments and run a couple commands and then have everything basically come out ready for me to upload to YouTube just like that. So I actually realized that I kind of combined this new section here with what I was just talking about, but I should say that everything that I just talked about for the videos on YouTube, it actually holds true for all of the videos in the playlist. And so it's not just like one or two, it's going to be everything that I upload that will have been processed in this way. And so you can see it on YouTube actually, but you can also see it on the videos as they're embedded in the website here. And so I showed you what one of those slide transitions looks like on the YouTube video, but it also holds just as much in the videos when they're embedded. And so I'll get to the embedded timestamps in a second here, but this is what we were just talking about, all of that automation that helps kind of produce these clean looking videos in the end that has those nice transitions between topics and these timestamps that are actually time accurate for everything. This was just the demo of kind of what it all looks like in its output form. All right, and so the other thing that I said I was going to demo here were the page internal timestamps. And if you're a software developer, you kind of manage these by using the API that YouTube has for embedding video iframes on your website. And so it's all JavaScript here. I'm not writing anything else because I'm embedding these on web pages. So it took me kind of a while to piece through the API and figure out what I needed to do here. But I actually added a cookie on the website on the settings page that lets you basically set whether you want timestamps on the website to be internal links that change where the embedded video is playing, or whether you want to make them external links that actually open the video in a new tab. So if I go back to this page right now and I click on one of these timestamps, you'll actually see that it changes the time in the video directly. If I change that setting, so I actually have it so that you can change the setting in a global sense through the settings page here. Well, if you do that, then you can actually basically change whether you want the links to open in an external tab or whether you want them to control the video. Now, if you're on a specific page, just like many of the other toggles I have, I actually let you control that toggle here. So, if you see here, when I'm changing these are changing the time in that embedded video at the top of the screen. Well, if I toggle this, then actually now if I click one of these, it'll open in a new tab. And so you can dynamically toggle that on a per page basis as well. And if I toggle it back, then you'll see that now we're changing in the embedded video again. So that's pretty cool. You can also toggle it for the whole site, like I said, on that settings page. The other cool thing that I did was I set it up so that even if the video is playing up here at the top, so you can see the bar is ticking, stuff's happening in the video. Well, if you scroll down and you're reading something, or you're listening to the audio and you're trying to follow along in the page links, if you ever want to jump back to the video, I put a link in the sidebar that scrolls you back up to the video. And so this is more useful perhaps on aggregation pages that have a bunch of study lessons kind of all smushed together on one page for searching and skimming. Well, if you have one video playing and you're not exactly sure where it is on the page, you can use this link in the sidebar to just always take you back up to the video. And the other thing, let's make sure I'm not missing anything here and what I'm going over. Right, the other thing that's really useful about everything that I've set up here is if you ever want to find where we talk about something in a video. So all the content is on these pages in the content section in the table of contents over here. But if you ever want to search through the transcript so that you can hear exactly where we are going to be talking about something, you can go down to the transcript and then you can search on the page. This is just normal search in browsers. This is nothing special about this. And in this first lesson, when we're going over the essence of God, let's say I want to go search for where we talked about so-called essential characteristics, right? And this is something that comes up when you talk about like what makes God God. So characteristic, got to figure out how to spell here. So you can see I actually tag some sections here. This is in the content, so those are the first couple matches. But now I'm down in the transcript, and this is real far down on the page. You can see in the scroll bar here. And if I want to go play, it says 55 minutes into the video, you can see we're talking about essential characteristics, and we're talking about what God is and what makes God God and things. Well, if I want to go play this, I'll scroll back up in a second, but I can go ahead and just click on the timestamp. Now the video is playing 55 minutes in, and if I jump back to the video, you can see that we're 55 minutes in. And so what's really useful is that you can actually use a full text search on the page to search the transcripts of all the videos that we've done to figure out when we talk about stuff. And then you can just click the link, and then you'll have the audio immediately, playing in your ears for exactly that text match that you found. So it basically lets you full text search the video, which is something that is super, super powerful. And so I've already taken advantage of this myself a little bit, trying to find where did we talk about this in, this study or this study. And eventually all of these transcripts will show up indexed on Google searches as well, which will let you kind of search all of the content on Bible Docs that much more powerfully. So I'm happy with how this turned out. Having those timestamps on the page and then being able to jump back to the video, it really lets you figure out really lets you use this workflow where you search for things just like how you would normally search for things, but then you can immediately go there in the video. And that's super cool. It's something that I've wanted to support for a while, but I finally got around to kind of doing all the coding in the JavaScript to let you do that. In action, like I said here, all the timestamps on pages, so not on YouTube, but on the embedded pages on my website. Now you can change where you are in the video that's on the page so that you have audio playing on the page. Or, like I said, if you prefer, you can toggle it or set the global setting so that your timestamp links actually still open it up on YouTube. And that'd be if you want to see, I don't know, like the comments on the YouTube video, or you just rather view it on YouTube. That's still an option as well. So that's kind of a demo of all of the timestamp stuff that I also added to the website in this content release cycle. All right, so kind of last main thing we're going to talk about here is now that I have all the stuff that I kind of just demoed set up so that on a new video recording, I kind of have all this stuff happen automatically. I record I splice all the video recordings together with the topic transitions, and I timestamp it, and I build that YouTube description automatically. And all of the timestamps now just kind of work on the website and let you full text search the transcripts, and all that stuff is now set up. Well, now that I have all of that, I'm kind of ready to kind of start producing videos kind of more weekly or bi-weekly, depending on our schedule, but being really consistent about it because I have the structure how I think I want it kind of in perpetuity now. So I can't think of a lot that I will ever want to change about this now that I've kind of done all that legwork to get it all set up. This is how I want the content to be, for the next 10, 20 years even. We'll see how long this channel sticks around, but because I have it kind of in the form that I want to repeat. I kind of have the template set up now, and I have everything in place to make it repeatable in a sustainable sort of way. So I really am planning on going through that video backlog that I have now and releasing. I'm going to set a pretty modest target for myself of maybe 2 videos a week here for the next few weeks. I'm going to at least get 2 videos a week out from that backlog that we have, making sure that they're all processed, they're all fully polished in this form, and that they show up properly on the website. That way, we'll get through that backlog of 20, 25 videos we have for this study that we've been going through. And once I catch back up, then as soon as we have a new lesson from our group Bible studies on the weekends, I'll actually post it as soon as I'm done recording it. So as soon as we finish something, I'll have it up on the YouTube channel within a day or two. That's going to be the goal moving forward here. And so if you are not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, you want to stay up to date with all of the new releases that are going to be rolling out over the next couple months, I would recommend you do that, because that way you'll be notified. If you have the bell on for the subscriptions, at least you'll be notified whenever I post the new videos here. And so that will be something that is going to happen. Like I said, I'm not going to do it all at once. It'll probably be a couple videos a week for the next few weeks here, but I'm going to be releasing content much more consistently now, hopefully carrying this onward kind of as we go here into the future. Like hopefully I won't have any more of these big pauses now, because I have all of the stuff in place to let me do this sustainably. It's not going to be a huge drain on my time, since I've automated so much of this that every single week we make a new recording, I can just pop over to the command line, run a couple things, and then the video's ready. I don't have to sit there and do as much work as I have been doing in the past to get everything ready to go up. And so the upshot of that is that hopefully I can do this week after week after week without it actually being a burden. And so I can do it much more sustainably, which means we won't have gaps in content anymore. At least that's the goal and the idea here. All right, finally, going to talk about my upcoming plans, kind of just how I've always done in these ministry progress summaries. What are the things that I'm planning on focusing on in the near future? What are my next goals? Kind of how am I going to be spending my time in the next few weeks here? So first of all, like we were just talking about, I'm going to be focusing on getting the full backlog of ready videos that I have up and posted to YouTube, kind of in all of the processed form, with the pretty transition slides and the timestamps, the hyperlink to the embedded video and all that. Get all of the content that I have kind of sitting that's ready that I just need to get up on the site. I think it's about 20 videos at present. And so I'm going to be doing that. That's going to be a main focus here. I want to get through that backlog so that I'm kind of like not in a hole anymore, so that I can kind of keep up with it week after week after that, so that I don't have kind of this growing backlog that I have to get out from under. So that's going to be kind of priority number one in the next little bit. Now, we are also going to be finishing our Bible Basics Part 1 study that I've mentioned several times here. We're actually really close to the end. So as I mentioned, we're talking about Christophanies in the Old Testament, which is actually the last big section in the study. And so we'll actually probably finish this study in several weeks' time. I don't know exactly how soon. It might be 3 or 4. But after that, I think I am going to have us start doing Christology or soteriology. These are other sections of that systematic theology on Ichthys, talking about Jesus Christ or salvation, respectively. I haven't quite decided which one of these we're going to do, but I think that's probably where we're going to turn next. So I'm just going to keep making more content from that group Bible study that we've been having, kind of just how we have been doing for the last year or so now as we pick back up in this Bible Basics series. And then as it relates to some of my other goals here in the immediate short term, I have 3 other things I want to do. I want to actually set up complete automation for silence removal in the video processing. So I mentioned right now that that's kind of what the processed video segments are. They cut out kind of extraneous time in the clips where no one's saying anything. It's just kind of dead content. Well, I am using a kind of a graphical user interface tool to do that right now. I have a command line tool that will do this, but the problem I've had is that the recordings that Zoom spits out, they just seem to go kind of crazy in the command line version of it. And so I don't really know why. I think both tools are using FFmpeg on the back end. One of them is a Python wrapper for it. That's the one that's on the command line. And I don't really know why it's causing all these bugs, but I haven't been able to completely automate it because I can't use the scriptable version of it because Python recordings don't seem to play nice with it. So I have had on my to-do list for a while now, seeing if I can switch us to a different kind of group video meeting application. So either Microsoft Teams or Google Meet or the Brave browser actually has a meeting thing built in. I don't know which of these. I think I'm going to try to have us use Microsoft Teams next, just because it's pretty feature rich and it's kind of a drop-in replacement for Zoom. But hopefully the recordings from Microsoft Teams won't interfere with the video processing in this way, so that I can use the completely automated command line version of the tool. And that will cut out one of the steps that is right now still kind of manual for me. It doesn't take super long, maybe a half hour or so to go do it all, but it's a half hour per video that is otherwise kind of preventable. So I want to do this, again, before I start really cranking up the content production pace. I want to have everything completely automated. And so I'm trying to knock out the stuff that right now is not completely automated, even if it's a lot closer. And in that vein, I'm also going to try to automate the transition segments a little bit more. So right now, I am automatically generating the transition slides from the content. So those nice black slides you see that transition between segments in the video, I am creating the slides that show that. I'm creating those automatically, but right now I have to actually manually go in and record a short segment for each one of those. And then I run a script that actually standardizes the length of all of them to 3 seconds and splices them all together. But I still have to do this extra step of manually recording all those. And I think there's a way for me to automatically generate the video segments from the slides. If I figure out how to save each slide as an image, of the right resolution, 1920 by 1080, then I can use FFmpeg to turn those images into 3-second videos without audio tracks, and then I can splice it all together, hopefully without having to do anything manual at all. So those are 2 more things that I want to set up in the video processing automation that I've been working on for the last little bit. And if I do those 2 things, I still need to automate the the transcript part of it a little bit more too. So right now I am copy pasting the transcript off of YouTube into a spreadsheet, basically like Excel, and I'm using some regular expressions to extract the timestamps and then build all the short codes and stuff. But I still have to go do that every new video. And there is a library that will let you download the transcript from a YouTube video once you set up a YouTube API key in your application. And I need to go look into that as well so that I can completely automate that. I'm going to start with these two things because the transcript stuff only takes me maybe 5 minutes. It's not bad at all. These things take me a little bit longer. And so I'm going to try to eliminate every single manual step from the process. I think it's possible. I just need to do some more software development here to get all of the remaining to-dos done. And then finally, I also want to set up a podcast for all of the content that we've been making here. So I have identified the platform I want to host the podcast with. It's a platform called Podbean. And it will automatically publish the podcast to both Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Those are the two most popular podcast platforms by like a wide margin. Between the two of them, that's like 90% market share or something. And so I need to have all of my content up in podcast form on both of those platforms. And I want the timestamps to work on both of those platforms. And the reason for that is because a lot of the content that we have here, like this video, for example, is already over an hour long. You really want timestamps and like the topics listed out and when the topics start if you have content in as much length and depth as we have in our Bible study videos here. And so I need to figure out how to add metadata to MP3 files, so to rip the audio off of the video files and then make sure that they have timestamps embedded in the metadata, and that the Apple Podcasts and Spotify actually set up timestamps a little bit differently. Apple Podcast uses metadata on the MP3 file itself, and Spotify uses timestamps in the episode description. But I kind of know what I have to do here, but getting all that set up too, and I have to pay money, of course, it's not free to host the podcast files and get the RSS feed set up for the podcasts. And that way, people can just subscribe to them on Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts. And every time we post a new lesson, you'll have the audio version of it that you can listen to, if you're commuting or doing dishes and, things like that. So I want to get the podcast form of things set up as well. And that's still, I haven't quite done everything I need to do there. I kind of have an idea of what I have to do, but even more of the kind of, coding side of things here left to do before I'll kind of have all the content stuff done. So I guess probably kind of technical still, but I will be making that effort to keep releasing content as we go now. I'd mentioned that I'm going to try to keep up with it so that every week at least we're going to have something new that gets posted to the channel. Even as I'm working on some of these remaining content to-dos, I have enough automated now that I'm going to be pressing forward with new content kind of without backlogging it as I have been in the past few months here. Finally, after all of that stuff that I mentioned, I'm going to turn my focus back to trying to launch the in-person Bible study in my house. So I have a projector set up, and I've kind of been ready to do this for a couple years, but I kept wanting to get the content in a better place so that I can kind of do it sustainably. So, like that parable of counting the costs, so not building a tower and running out of materials halfway here, I kind of want to have everything set up in a sustainable fashion before I, invite folks over and we try to make this video series and podcast of the Bible study that I host in person. I want to have everything set up and ready for that to happen so that people who miss a week will kind of seamlessly be able to view last week's stuff online, in whatever format they want and have it all there. But to do that, I have to make it time efficient, and to make it time efficient, I have to automate it. And so a lot of the in-person Bible study stuff is kind of hard dependent on me finishing the rest of the video processing stuff and the podcast side of things as well, so that I have everything in place so that when I start doing the in-person Bible studies and recording those, I'll have everything ready to kind of take that content and automatically get it where it needs to be, because at that point I'll be doing the Bible studies from our Ichthus group that we've been doing for the last few years. So that's at least one video a week, a couple hours of video content, plus these studies, plus if I ever do anything in the middle of the week, we're talking maybe 2 or 3 videos a week of, substantial length I have to automate it because otherwise I just would not be able to keep up. And so until I get some of that stuff done, this is still kind of on hold. I have a lot of to-dos here, relating to getting the house ready for it and figuring out how I'm going to have, a multi-channel microphone thing for people to be able to ask questions on the recordings and things like that. I have some to-dos here, but I'm not going to focus as much time and energy on this until I finish all the rest of the content stuff, some of the to-dos that I just mentioned before, because all of that kind of needs to precede this before I feel like I'll be where I want to be in terms of sustainability on kind of the time efficiency front. All right, well, that just about does it here. Just going over what we talked about in this ministry update. So I talked about how a lot of the things that I was planning to do kind of got pushed aside in lieu of me working on some of the video automation in the processing so that I could get all of the Bible Basics Part 1 videos up in the near future here. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to finish most of the automation before I did the bulk of the video processing, just to save time. And so that's what I ended up doing in practice. And so that's why it's been several months here. I kind of then went over kind of what the video processing workflows involved. We looked at all of the files in this sort of directory structure that I have set up, and then looked at what the videos look like on YouTube with the topic transition slides, the black slides in between sections, and then the accurate timestamps for everything that get automatically generated. And then we also looked at the page internal timestamps on my website and how they actually let you full text search transcripts so that if you want to go click on a timestamp and then have the video play exactly where you want to hear the thing, well, now that actually works perfectly as well. And so, jumping back to the video and all that to set up that entire framework on my website. And then after that, I mentioned how I'm going to try to be more consistent here. Now that I have a lot more of this automation in place, it should be more sustainable for me to kind of do a video a week or every other week and stuff like that. So hopefully we won't have gaps in video releases kind of as much as we have the last couple, honestly, the last couple of years. I'm hoping now that I have everything in place to be much more consistent than we have been here. And then finally, I talked about some of the upcoming stuff I'm planning on doing. So going to keep making those content releases as we keep plugging forward in our group study of the systematic theology on Ichthus, as well as trying to finish off a bit more automation in my video processing workflow so that I can have everything completely automated rather than just having, I don't know, maybe 80% of it automated like I have it right now. And so those are the main things that I'm going to be focusing on in the short term, with that longer term goal of eventually getting that in-person Bible study set up kind of once I have all of the automation in place so that I can sustainably do 2 or 3 videos a week like I'd like to do. So that is what I'm planning on focusing on in the future. So I hope this video has been helpful. And I don't know exactly when I'll make the next one of these. I don't think it'll probably be, in 2 weeks. I think it may be a month or two as I finish getting through all of that video content in the backlog that's going up here. But I hope this kind of helped situate people with what progress has been made, where my focus has been the last little bit, and kind of what things to look forward to. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for all the content videos that will be coming out in the next few weeks here.